The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the Our Culture, Our Stories podcast are those of the individual hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of the NAACP or any affiliated organizations.
We as Black men are creating spaces where we can engage with each other like that, because some of us have friends and brothers who we can build with like that. But there's always that, there's a trigger there. And I don't get too vulnerable because you don't want to be a sucker and you don't want to be too emotional. But, bruh, if I love you as my brother, man, you need to shed that tear, man.
Period.
We need to open up. Come on, because it's not a weakness, it's strength. But we need to create more spaces for us to have real conversations like that.
Yeah. You don't become an accomplished author, writer, print, television. That doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
There's a process. How old were you when you realized that this was all a part of what you would one day be doing, and where does that come from?
Long before I ever actually dreamed of, becoming a writer or a journalist at all, before I even had a real concept of what that was, I remember my mother as a little boy before school each morning would get down on a knee and say, "I am," and I'd say somebody. And she filled me with a sense of pride in myself, that I knew that when I stepped out of that door and out of that house, that I was loved, I was respected, I was special, and I was somebody. I truly believed her. So not that I didn't ever have doubts as just a young person, maturing and growing, but I knew that I was somebody. And with that, I knew that all things were possible. It didn't mean that everything was always going to be perfect, because it hasn't been perfect. I think back to those old gospel songs, coming from the rough side of the mountain. Now, the mountain was definitely rough, and there wasn't anything certain about my journey at all.
I seem too young to know about that song.
I'm coming up.
All on the rough
That's
side.
for the commercials for that LP, gospel joint. But none of this was certain, honestly, man. Sometimes I still wake up to this day, and what keeps me going is that, no, I am somebody, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing. But long before, again, I got to this point where I'm having this, the honor of speaking with you, and the honor of being nominated 4 times for this Image Award.
How many?
4 times. It was that little boy and looking in my mom's eyes and her saying that I am somebody, knowing that life wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't easy. There were many moments where it just wasn't clear what would happen. I always knew that I was going to be okay, and I knew that I was special. But that's what got me through. And so no matter what I would face later, and even coming into my career, when I'm down in New Orleans and the floodwater is rising, I don't know where anyone is, and I can keep writing. Or when you get into the New York Times and I'm in this super white spaces, and you do have a moment of like, am I good enough? Or not to this day really, because it's not the same now, but am I conjugating it the right way? Am I saying the right, and then you have to remember, like, first of all, I'm somebody. And that's why all of this matters, because I need my people, because I don't necessarily to this day, and I'm 46 years old, I don't fully understand, trust these other spaces necessarily to validate me or my well-being at all. And we could say that because we're grown adult men. We've been in this space.
Yes, sir.
So that's why it's important to have our well that we can continue to dip into to fill us.
Yes, sir.
But I would tell that story to the day I died. My mother, I am somebody, because I believed her. And that made all the difference. That makes any of this possible, because there's nothing I can't do. I'm going to pitch this story, a special, a project. Let's go. What can stop me?
Because I am somebody.
I am. Do you know who I am? I'm not somebody because of the accolades, right? I'm somebody because my mother, my community, my family, my people love and respect me, and they know I love and respect them. And so that with that fortification, that cape, right? That shield. Come on, man. Come on.
I feel it too.
Come on, man.
I feel it.
Nothing.
Yeah, I feel it.
Nothing.
I feel it.
Nothing.
Yeah. I feel it, man. Let's do a little word association.
Oh.
Let's do a little word association. Since you went there.
Here we are.
First thing that comes to mind, that woman, Wanda, you just mentioned.
Love, man. Oh, man. I didn't think I would. Love. Oh, that's one thing. My mother loved me, man. Love. But I think about, like, so my family has had a long journey. The stories that we experience in the Jim Crow South and the migration and getting to New Jersey, and after that, been punctuated by a lot of pain. And that I know I come from good people no matter what. And that she poured into me because she wanted me. She saw something in me early, that she knew that I was going to be something for us. And so on one hand, trying to always remember that, but it wasn't a burden. It was a gift that she gave me. So I think about the love that my mother poured into me. Again, my mother was married when she was 16 years old. She had her first child when she was 16. My sister, and then my brother, and then me, and a marriage and divorce and marriage and, a partner with a drug addiction and the streets calling all of us and everything going on around us and crack cocaine and police, right? And black manhood, young black men, like me and my brother, everything that we were going to eventually face. And then this world that can be just cold and nothing's guaranteed for us. With all of that ahead of me, and she looks in her 5-year-old baby boy's eyes and says, "You are somebody." And every step of the way, if I call my mother now, she'll be like, proud. She gonna see this and be drawn to tears. Any story, she's read every single story I've ever written. So it's like, just love, man. Just love. And I rarely get to say it in this context because nobody's asking. So thank you for the question. But yeah, and at the end, the life that she had, her father, my grandfather, was murdered when she was 23 years old. And so what the toll that took on our family and on her to this day, and she was one of 8 kids. And I know how badly that tore into our family. So I can say it's been no easy road for any of us. And then here I am all these years later, telling these stories that matter because I know my family has experienced it. And we're not alone, right? And what our communities have experienced. And emerged, we're part of a legacy and tradition. I am as special as I am because I am singular, I am me. But we all have that gift, right? Sometimes it's hard to see because it's layered with, what this society and what white supremacy and all the violence baked into that, what it does to us. But in spite of and despite those things, we emerge, and I'm just proud to be part of that legacy.
Yeah.
My mother is she's cool too. Now she got a little streak in a little bit, but she's the nicest. She's lovely. I love her. She's wonderful. I mean, again, she got a little spark in there though. Watch yourself now. Be careful.
Well, that's how she survived.
We are vulnerable humans.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable because we have to protect ourselves.
Sure.
But anyway, it's special, man. That's all.
And there's something about the space when we occupy it together.
Yeah.
It's safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It's there's no pretense.
Yeah. But as black men sometimes, and I feel like this is my newer mission, is to make sure that we as black men are creating spaces where we can engage with each other like that. Because some of us have friends and brothers who we can build with like that. But there's always that, there's a trigger there. And I don't get too vulnerable because you don't want to be a sucker and you don't want to be too emotional. But bruh, if I love you as my brother, man, you need to shed that tear, man.
Period.
You need to open up. Come on, because it's not a weakness, it's strength. But we need to create more spaces for us to have real conversations like that.
Yeah. A couple of more word associations. A few more.
Man, there's more.
There's more.
Come on.
There's more. But I think we got. I think that we're good now.
Yeah.
Couple of more. 3 or 4 more. Kenny.
I'll tell you what. My and this is a work in progress. This is actually an uncharted space. Kenny is my father. Who I didn't grow up with him. So I don't have that typical, father-son relationship with him. But it is amazing how similar we are he didn't raise me. When I think of what I believe are my positive attributes, that's him. Positive man.
Despite all his challenges.
Well, Kenny is, so my stepfather, I had a stepfather who I've loved deeply, who was plagued with drug abuse issues and just trauma. His father was killed when he was a kid. He just really went through it. I have deep love and empathy for him. Now, my father, my biological father, is in the church. He plays St. Pro basketball. He's in Camden, a community man, raises money for the basketball teams, feeds people. He is an endless well of positive energy.
Okay.
And community oriented. So the two different examples of how manhood often shows up in our communities. Now, I grew up in a household. My mother, I'm telling all my business now, but this is how we got here.
Yeah.
My mother and my stepfather got married when I was maybe 7 years old. And so from that time on, that was the first time since I was a little kid, where I had a father figure like that in the home. And it wasn't like with mom. Oh, you getting on that roof and getting them gutters. Oh, you getting up in the morning and you about to cut this grass. Oh, you about to, he was a brick mason. Oh, you coming, you gonna help me lift these bricks. They're 16 pounds, 12, 16 pound bricks on the job sites. You gonna be here with me. We used to go fishing. I remember the first time I called him dad, he got me a fishing pole. And I was just excited, man. Me and Pop used to be out there on it. But Pop was a drug addict. Pop was a drug addict where he wasn't going to steal your TV and nothing like that. He made his own money, but then you think we'll see him for days.
Yeah.
And that is gut wrenching. Good guy.
Yeah.
Good spirit.
Mm-hmm.
His soul. So when I think of Kenny, I think I do always wonder, and this is one of those conversations that a lot of us as Black men have. What could have been? I don't have that kind of connection to this really good man. My heart is torn up by a stepfather who I know loved me, who had one of his sons was murdered, who had to watch all his sons except for me, being drawn to the streets a little bit, right? A little bit or a lot of it, and so, it's we so often are trying to disentangle these dynamics that we as Black men face, especially with our fathers. So I'm no different.
Little girl named Nola.
Oh, my baby girl, that's my partner, my daughter, my only child. She'll be 13, but when you talk to her, and hopefully you get a chance to meet her if we see you around the award show, she's a mature spirit, curious. She's the one. She's the one. She's the one. She has it. She's as curious as she is, she's down to earth. She knows how to look you in your eye and engage with folks. No, she's brought a different kind of mission and passion to my life. I have to not just survive and thrive for her, but I have to see it through. Many years ago, I had a heart attack. I almost died. It was bad. And the toughest part wasn't the physical. That's going to be what it's going to be. I worked hard to, rehab after. It was the fear that I would miss seeing her grow up. And that to me strikes deeper than even what I went through and the uncertainty and the emotional and psychological healing that comes with a near-death experience. It's like, oh, my baby girl, we ain't done yet. We ain't done yet. I need to see her. I need to see it through. There are lessons that I need to pass on. Everything that I've gained from so many people in my family, people I've come across in this journey of life who've given me these little gems, I have to give them to her. And we ain't there yet. So I think about my little girl, man. She's something. She's also funny. She's tough too. It's not easy being a kid in this day and age.
Yeah.
It's not easy. But she's handled it. And she has a sense of resolve, and she's special, man. That's my little partner. That's my little buddy.
Yeah. I want to talk about the heart attack, but first, got a couple of more. Lady named Gabrielle.
Yeah. My wife, she's solid, man. She's one where she's cool. I met her in New Orleans. A year after Katrina. And from the beginning, I knew that she was just solid. You know what I'm saying? Just I don't know how to say it, just solid. cool as hell, solid. And she's really smart. She's really about her business. Started as a journalist. Now she's a publicist, and she does PR. And to hear her, and I noticed this first over the pandemic, where we were for the first time, I'm listening to her in her meetings. And that's just my wife. I know her. She cool as hell. We kick it, and that's her. I was hearing her be a boss.
You're like, wow.
I'm like, yo,
That's my wife.
I said she bad. She is on it. But she has, and I say this seriously because it's something I value. She has good sense, man.
Yeah.
Everybody don't got good sense. Brothers, if you made it to this point, and this has been, you've been with some folks who don't got no good sense.
Yeah.
Don't have good common sense.
Yeah.
Gab,
My grandmama used to say common sense is not
it
common.
ain't common. It ain't common. So she's solid, smart. She's bad. She's a boss, and she got great common sense, man.
And she got good taste too.
I mean, come on, brother.
She's got good taste.
Listen, what's known ain't got to be said, brother.
Okay. All right. One word for these last ones. Milton Hershey School.
Oh man, a ladder.
Oh,
Solid ground and a ladder.
a ladder.
At Milton Hershey School, I went to. It's a private boarding school for underprivileged and poor children. Created originally for poor white orphans. Multi-billion-dollar endowment. The richest school in the country.
$18 billion.
$18 billion endowment. And the whole mission is for young people of promise coming from communities all across the country, working class, urban, rural, who just need a shot. And so I went to Milton Hershey in 7th grade, and changed my life, man. Everything is free, from housing, tuition. There's no tuition. Your medical, but also I met my best friends, my brothers to this day. All went to Milton Hershey. So my best friends have been my best friends since 7th grade, and we still tight. And we all came from generally similar backgrounds. Some a little more harsh than others. But Milton Hershey, a ladder and a gift.
I've asked that question many times over the years. I've never had anybody answer a ladder. That's a first.
Listen, without Milton Hershey,
it came right to you.
Without Milton Hershey, I mean, I think I would have been okay because I have somebody.
Yeah.
But it just positioned me, man. I was coming from, my stepfather is, incarcerated. My brother and sister are out the crib. I'm starting to get to the basketball courts. I'm great grades, but I'm fighting a little bit. It's just things are, and then it's just things are getting a little funny. So now I'm in Milton Hershey, and I'm part of the model airplane club where we build model airplanes and flying them. I'm end up being in part of the scouting program. I'm doing stuff in the woods. I'm meeting people from New York and Pennsylvania and Florida, and also some of the challenges. I was fortunate in a space like that. You get to bump your head without knocking your head off. Out in the streets, some mistakes will knock your head clear off, and that's it. So to be in a space where you can have those normal growing pains, and you got sometimes you got to throw hands a little, sometimes you got to challenge the authorities, sometimes you have to do all those things, which I did, and it was still a safe space, and I got to have a top-notch education. And so I was writing for the yearbook staff, and I was doing all the writing and stuff then, and playing all the sports, right? It was just not a lot of people where I come from have the opportunity to experience what it's like to benefit from that kind of environment, man, and that kind of institution. So big shout out to the Milton Hershey School.
A ladder.
Oh, listen, a ladder.
One word, Payson Avenue.
Home. I'm gonna give you one word. I got about 25,000 words for that, but it's home, man.
Okay.
It's home.
Give me a couple more.
I'll tell you what, man, growing up on Payson Avenue, my house was always the one that was just very warm. My mother created a very warm environment. And so it's a welcoming space. Not everybody welcome, but it's some of y'all holler at me from the fence. So you got some friends.
You ain't welcome.
Some of y'all holler at me at the fence. I'm gonna come outside and play with y'all later. But I had a warm household. You could smell the food coming out the screen door in the front. There was always some kids in the street playing football, playing kickball in the street. We wrestling in the front yards. Somebody had a basketball court up. I mean, there were literally kids everywhere on the street. Kids would come across from the blocks away to our street to just kick it and have fun. And so we had that kind of childhood, man. We were just taking your bike and just being out. It was just, again, very working class. People didn't have a lot, but we had, I would say, a sense of community. That was home, man.
Mention basketball. One word. LeBron.
Greatest. I'm gonna say it. And we grew up with Michael
You
Jordan.
going with that? That's your final answer?
It's hard to deny.
Okay.
My man is 40, 41,
Yeah.
averaging, I think he's 24 or 25 points a game, blamming on these young boys. Like, it's hard. And again, there are athletes, artists, entertainers that completely rewrite the game. When Michael Jordan came, no one could dribble a basketball the same. It changed. It's like the Nas or Rakim of rap. It's like you cannot participate the same way. You're never the same. But to see what LeBron has done on and off the court, he got his family, he got his school, he got his homeboys around him that are all super successful, all in the machine that is him. Never heard any wild scandal or drama. He ain't getting caught with no guns in no airports. You know what I'm saying? You have to respect what he's created. A kid from Akron, respect.
One word. Allen Iverson.
Oh, the answer. Listen, in Philly, I was in Philly when Iverson was there. And one thing you have to appreciate about AI, you at the club, oh, you're gonna see Allen Iverson. There was off of Sea Line Avenue, there was a hotel called the Adams Mark. And
I know Adams Mark.
And in front was an Applebee's right out there. That became Club Applebee's. When Iverson was in town, that became the club. So all you had to do was go to the Applebee's and it was popping. You go to, and you would see AI, he was with the people, but he was the answer. The game had gotten a little stale. He introduced something brand new to the game. And I'll tell you, Iverson, when I was in Philly, before, I might not even made it out of school because I took the scenic route through school. So I took it took me many years to get to school, man. Okay. So in the in-between, I was writing for little hip hop.
Did it.
Oh, listen.
Yeah, you did it.
I was writing for little hip hop magazines. I was doing poetry. I was just in the street. I was just running around doing my thing. And there was a shout out to Ogbonna Hagen's publisher of Philly Word magazine, who gave me a chance to write for him for free. And I was just writing for the magazine. And I wrote a cover story on Allen Iverson. And it was a long feature story. I didn't get a chance to talk to Allen Iverson. I just built this entire story around him being the answer. And it was so big shout out to Iverson. Again, I used that clip among a few others to get my first internship. And so Iverson was the answer to some of my prayers. Look at that. We bring it full circle. We bring it full circle.
I had no way of knowing that.
No way of knowing it.
No way of knowing that.
Nah.
You also played football.
Yep.
Jalen Hurt.
Oh, listen. First of all, Bird Gang, congratulations, fellas. Go Birds. Jalen Hurts is another one of those brothers where you put in the work. When he was at Alabama, getting benched for Tua, right? How do you respond? How do you respond in life? One of my coaches, Coach Bobby Geyer at Milton Hershey, would say, eliminate ground time. When you get knocked to the ground, get up. The game's still going. In life, it's still going.
Eliminate
ground time. Eliminate the time you spend on the ground. You get knocked down, they didn't blow the whistle. When you think about Jalen Hurts, does he have the skill? Does he have the arm? Does he have the... Does he? He gets knocked down and he gets back up. Oh, he doesn't put up the numbers, but he wins. He wins. He wins. He wins. So, but also he comes in a tradition as a lifelong Eagles fan of black quarterbacks. Randall Cunningham, Rodney Peete, right? Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick. Michael Vick. To now Jalen Hurts, man. So big shout to him. Congratulations.
One word. Politics.
I'm gonna give you my real first thought. Dirty. Politics is a dirty game, man. So often we lose what the policy is really about. It should be about, and again, I'm stepping out of my
policy
terms.
Is my next word, by the way.
Okay.
You can combine those two there, just as you just did.
Yeah. The policy is the guide rails we set up in our society to help usher people towards prosperity. It should be. How we allocate resources, right? How we find those soft spots of need and fill those needs, because we are Americans and we're all supposed to be contributing to this.
How we do what we're supposed to do.
What we're supposed to do. Politics is an act of perpetual manipulation of the people and the populace for power. And it can be sickening. And there are few politicians who have emerged unscathed. Not necessarily by their own doing, but you have to make compromises for your ends, unfortunately, because that's the way this game is. the shenanigans that come along when you're going for re-election.
Yeah.
Can't say that's the right thing, that's the wrong thing. It's the right thing because it's right for the people, but it's the wrong thing because how will it play? Social media has been weaponized. The media, and I'm a part of it. And I love what I do. I love what we do, but it's been weaponized. The smoke and mirrors. I think politics is just dirty and it's so unfair. It's just so unfair to so many of us. And to see communities of people suffering while others get rich off the backs of our pain. It's just dirty, man. It's just dirty.
NAACP.
Oh man, legacy. Not that I've centered most of my work on the uglier parts, but I think my job, my mission has been to shine a light in a dark space. And when I think of the NAACP, I think of that black and white photo of that flag hanging over there in New York headquarters in the early 20s and the 30s. A man was lynched yesterday. A man was lynched yesterday. Establishing manhood among us, but also the violence perpetrated by this system every single day on us. And to have a flag reminding this society and this culture and this country what you've done to us, and we will fight. And so it's not just a flag, though. There's the Legal Defense Fund. There's every step of the way. They're activists. They're community organizing. They're making it happen. I think the common mission is, personally, to see the promises that America has made fulfilled. The democracy that black people forced this country to acknowledge, because this wasn't a true democracy. It was all BS from the very beginning because they didn't mean us. We had to force them through blood and sweat and organizing. We had to force this country to say, you know what? We did say all men. We did say, you know what I mean? So you know.
Which brings me to the last word association question. America.
Complicated was my first thought. It's complicated. Where else do you find the machinery? First of all, the eloquence in which the founding, white men of this country, the eloquence in which they articulated the idea of this country.
Brilliant.
Oh my God.
Amazing. I don't know how many people have read it, but it reads, it's just incredible.
And the groundbreaking articulation, the idea itself of freedom, right? The idea itself of freedom. But the counterpoint was that it was all just poetry, because at the revolution, how ironic that the first man to die in the Revolutionary War was a black man.
That's right.
The revolution did not deliver freedom to black people or women or native peoples, right? And so but the one thing about all of the successful fights to deliver measures of equality, and we have had measures of getting there, wouldn't really be possible without the machinery, the cogs that existed. You have the Constitution, you have the so-called democracy, you have all these tools to make it better. So while it was a sham and it was poetry that they didn't mean people had to die for them to.
It was beautiful, though.
But we actually do have the tools and the machinery.
Yeah.
And black folks, more than most, have found a way to, let's turn this cog, let's put pressure on this one. And so it's complicated. It's because for a very long time, I reluctantly, like, American, what is that flag? But we made this what it is, so it's complicated.
Let's talk about the podcast, and then I want to talk about the heart attack a little more. Into America.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It's amazing how where we find ourselves professionally. I would have never imagined myself being a podcast host or working in audio. I was a writer. I like to write. That's my strength. But Into America has allowed me the privilege and position to braid together in a way that is rare. The past and the present, the history along this continuum of our experience in this country in a way that touches on race and power and politics and the environment and money, all through the filter and lens of Black life and death in America. To be able to sit intimately in people's ears when they're working out, walking the dog, doing the dishes, but I'm with you. And you can hear my voice and my intonation, because when I'm writing, I don't write necessarily the way I speak. Right? If I'm in front of a camera, I might tighten up a little bit because I have a minute and a half and the world is watching and I got to get to this package. I got to toss it. But in the podcast, I'm just talking again. We're a lot of this scripted, so we're combining the writing, but also in these conversations, you're getting me at my most natural self.
Sure.
I'm telling every or we're on a hiatus now, but every week we're delivering an hour-long essential audio documentary, essentially that shines light. Special opportunity, man. I love, like, again, couldn't even imagine. That's what's gotten me to the Image Awards for the last 4 years is the podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4.
How would you describe Into America to a 75-year-old Caucasian woman in less than a minute? How would you describe the show to her? Who hadn't heard of the show, not familiar with it, what would you say in the description?
If you want to understand how Black life has been lived in America from every step along the way, from freedom to Reconstruction to the Civil Rights era, listen to Into America. We'll put some flesh and humanity onto this in a narrative way to realize that as different as our experiences have been, we are very much alike because this too is America. And so to give yourself a moment, an hour to sit back and unsheath the truth about this country, the good, the bad, and the ugly, listen to Into America, because it's not just a Black narrative. This is a truly American narrative. And to understand yourself, you have to understand us. I heard something, and I would maybe say this, but it's outside a minute and a half. I saw something recently that noted, slavery is white history. Black history is how we responded and survived. The depth of that is also Into America, right? The survival is the Black part. The violence is the American part. So too, these things are braided together, right? There's a meshing of that violence and that survival that is singular in our story. But I think that it's our story is in our thriving, in our survival, and making a way where there was no way, right? And forcing this country to be an America that it never truly expected or desired or wanted to be. And most of the people that inhabited this country did not want it to be, but we pushed. We pushed, we fought, we died, we bled, but we also lived. We died, but we lived. Our people lived and fought for this moment. This is America.
This is America. Outside of the Emmy, Pulitzer, other awards, got a box full of awards.
Yeah.
Walls.
Yeah.
Bathroom walls. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And you even got those nominations.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
When were you first aware, would you say, of the impact of your work? Go ahead.
The earliest sense I got that my work mattered and was impactful,
or any moment for that matter.
Yeah, no, it was as a local newspaper reporter, which are the unheralded heroes of the media, local news reporters, and specifically, and I'm biased, newspaper reporters. I was a police reporter for much of my, many of my earliest years, and I can recall writing stories. There was one story in particular where this woman's house was firebombed, and she was killed, and she had 3 small children who were all killed in this fire. And I remember going to the funeral, and there was one big casket and 3 smaller ones. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The way the community responded in this dark, dark moment for Trenton, it was a reminder that, telling these stories can spark something. There's so many stories that it was community. It's seeing my newspaper, my front page story in the newspaper box, and seeing people on the bus reading it, and then seeing the police chief reading it. And it was like people are locked in a way that I think, and I think different than being a national reporter, they can still touch you. I'm still there. I loved being in the neighborhood, and I'm hanging out at the school, and then I go to the church, and then I'm grabbing a drink at the bar, and I'm talking to the bartender, and I'm like, you're there. And that people need, and there's so many times where the news is wrong. The news doesn't paint us accurately at all. And so those moments where I know I got it right, and I know I'm telling a story that others might not have the will or desire to tell, that's when I know it matters.
talk about the book. You got a new book coming out.
My first book is called 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. And I'm speaking to how guns have shaped our experience in this country, going back to the guns for slave cycle, which is perhaps one of the most under investigated aspects of the slave trade, is that as gun technology was rising, the British powers and European powers were applying regional African powers with guns for enslaved people. And so we have this myth in our minds that enslaved people were a natural byproduct of regional wars. No, the Europeans were fomenting and creating war to create slaves. Slaves were being made by the war, right? And so we were pushed out of Mother Africa with the muzzle of a gun at our backs. And then we arrive at the hell of the Western world with a musket in our face, right? And so the violence of slavery, of the slave patrols, the violence that it took to, emancipate us, Reconstruction, the violence of the redemption period when white folks tried to push us as far back into slavery as they possibly could, through the migration and arriving in the North with a different kind of violence than white folks with a different accent, and the violence of, you're like us, but we don't want you in school with us, even in the North. And every step of the way to Reaganomics, to the ecosystems that created what we know as modern urban gun violence today, and the weight that that puts on us, and the stress and the trauma that we inherit from this, to the weight that Black men in particular face. And the women in our lives, the thing about our mothers and grandmothers and sisters and aunties and girlfriends who are weathering the pain of our violent demise. And we're so much more likely to die violently than other people. And so telling this story of my own family's experience with gun violence from the 1920s into the 2000s as a vehicle to speak to what we've experienced in this country. But I think what's really important about this book also, as much as it's about gun violence, it's also about the violence that comes long before a trigger is ever pulled. And that's what has ripened our community for such bloodshed, right? Not just guns as a cudgel early on to beat us back into enslavement, right? Not just as, traumatized young people who are hungry and scrambling and validating their own manhood through the gun, through the so-called good guys with guns, these legal gun dealers who happen to just have guns just streaming out the backs of their stores, who can't track the guns, don't know where they are, and they are forever, right? And so this book, really was a lifetime to make it. I'm being much more, even though I've been personal in this podcast.
Appreciate it too.
No doubt,
Appreciate
man.
it.
But it's the first time this book is a rare personal glimpse also, because it's taken a much more memoirish tone than I ever expected to. But this book also,
how'd that happen?
Well, what happened is, so I got the book deal in 2015. In 2017, I had a heart attack, what they call a widowmaker. So 90+% of my left anterior descending artery, the big one on the left, was clogged up by a blood clot. So some plaque broke off, and then the way your body responds is to clot where the damage happened. So it's soft plaque that broke off and filled it. So I almost died. It was really tough. But in the aftermath of that, my daughter, Nola, who was, 5 or 6 years old then, was asking me about how I almost died. Like, Daddy, what happened? How'd you die? And in order to answer her, I had no high blood pressure, no family history of early death or heart disease. I had to really engage with what I was carrying in my heart. And what I was carrying in my heart is what's been passed down from 1923 in Jim Crow, Georgia, when my grandmother's 12-year-old brother was murdered. And then in the 50s, when another of my grandmother's brothers was murdered, to my grandfather's murder, to how my family responded to that, carrying pieces of that. And I too carried a piece of that, to telling the stories that matter most to our communities, which often engage with unpacking the violence that we experience. And I'm taking a little piece here, and a little piece here, and never processing it. So I'm trying to tell Nola how Daddy almost died. I was carrying too much in my heart. And so the story, it's still about guns and violence and how it shaped us, but it became so much more, man, and personal. And so really this is a culmination of my personal life, my professional life, my engaging with early violent Black death, and my own almost early death. And so I'm very proud of this, man. It's out September 9th. Pre-orders are available now everywhere. 1,000 Ways to Die. Man.
Wow. 1,000 Ways to Die. Man, we thank you so much for coming on the NAACP Image Awards podcast series.
Yes, sir.
Our Culture, Our Stories. If we were to add a category to the NAACP Image Awards, last question, what do you think? What do you think we should add? Should that be the Huey Award for people who you mentioned in the green room, Mira, Susan, Lucci from All My Children's long time losing streak? And I've already talked to you. So anybody who's watching this who says, is John picking on him?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not picking. This is the
No,
we're brothers.
So and I
Talked about
honestly,
yeah.
it is actually
Yeah.
an honor to be nominated. It really is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I had to, I don't know. I do think, and I'll say this, and this is from whence I came. I think something that acknowledges local Black journalism. I think there are Black journalists. I think there are Black newspapers that are doing great work. I think there are Black journalists across this country that are doing great work. I wish there was a way to acknowledge, what so many local Black journalists are doing. Because as there's an attack on history, as there's an attack on DE&I, as there's an attack on us and our representation, the first line are those there on the ground. So perhaps there's, a Huey for courageous local reporting. Maybe there's,
Just create.
there we go. We building here, brother.
Yeah, we're building. We're building.
That's what the NAACP does, man. Bring
Yes, sir.
people together to build.
Yes, sir.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the Our Culture, Our Stories podcast are those of the individual hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of the NAACP or any affiliated organizations.